So you lied about Chicago draining. You were with Conrad, not at a conference.
Because you never gave me anything I wanted, Miles.
My name is Miles Harwood, and I used to believe that financial stability was the most attractive thing a 45-year-old man could offer. Turns out, I was wrong about a lot of things. It started on a Tuesday morning in March when I found the hotel receipt. Not hidden, mind you, just sitting there on our kitchen counter like a guilty confession waiting to be discovered. The Marriott downtown, room for two, signed with initials that definitely weren't mine. CH. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Lila, I called to my wife of 18 years, who was applying lipstick in our bathroom mirror with the precision of a surgeon. What's this receipt from? She glanced over, her blonde hair catching the morning light in that way that used to make my heart skip. Now it just made me suspicious. Oh, that? Client meeting ran late. Had to get a room. She didn't even pause in her lipstick application. Smooth as silk, my Lila. Always had been. CH, I pressed, holding up the receipt. Conference host, she said without missing a beat. You know how these travel industry events work, Miles? Everything gets billed under generic codes. I nodded and smiled, playing the trusting husband. But here's the thing about being a financial analyst for 20 years. You develop a nose for bullshit that could rival a bloodhound's, and this reeked. Lila worked as a travel consultant, which gave her plenty of legitimate reasons to be away. Girls' trips, client meetings, industry conferences. For the past 6 months, those trips had been getting longer and more frequent, and she'd been coming home with that glow that had nothing to do with spa treatments. I'll be late tonight, she said, kissing my cheek with lips that tasted like lies. Vera and I are checking out that new wine bar on 5th Street. Vera, Lila's best friend since college, and the kind of woman who treated marriage vows like suggestions. If Lila was up to something, Vera was either enabling it or orchestrating it. Have fun, I said, meaning the opposite. After Lila left, I sat in our pristine kitchen, surrounded by the fruits of my financial stability. Granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, a coffee maker that cost more than most people's car payments. All of it suddenly felt like a museum exhibit, the last days of Miles Harwood's naive period. I pulled out my laptop and did what any suspicious husband in the digital age would do. I started digging. Our phone plan showed Lila's call history, and one number appeared with suspicious frequency. A quick reverse lookup gave me a name, Conrad Hale. Conrad Hale. The name hit me like a slap. Lila's high school boyfriend, the one she'd described as the one who got away during one of our early dating conversations. I'd laughed it off then, secure in my victory. After all, I was the one who'd married her, right? I spent my lunch break doing more research. Conrad owned a gym called Hale's Fitness across town. His social media was exactly what you'd expect from a guy who peaked in high school and never got over it. Shirtless mirror selfies, motivational quotes about grinding, and photos of protein shakes that probably cost more than my morning coffee. But what caught my attention were the recent check-ins. Conrad had been at a lot of the same hotels where Lila had her client meetings, same dates, same locations. Either this was the biggest coincidence since the invention of adultery, or my wife was getting her cardio somewhere other than our home gym. That evening, I waited for Lila to come home from her wine date with Vera. She stumbled in around midnight, giggling and smelling like Chardonnay and guilt. How was girls' night? I asked from the couch, where I'd been sitting in the dark like some kind of discount private investigator. Oh my God, Miles, you scared me. She flicked on the lights, and I got a good look at her. Hair slightly mussed, lipstick gone, and that telltale glow again. It was great. Vera's got some crazy stories about her dating life. I bet she does. I stood up, studying her face. You know, it's funny. I was thinking about your high school reunion last year. Didn't you mention running into Conrad Hale? The change in her expression was microscopic, but I caught it. A slight tightening around her eyes, a barely perceptible pause. Conrad? Oh, yeah, briefly. He looks exactly the same. She laughed, but it sounded forced. Still thinks he's God's gift to women. Mm-hmm. I moved closer, and she actually took a step back. Well, I'm heading to bed. Long day tomorrow. As I brushed my teeth, I could hear Lila in the bedroom, her voice low and urgent. She was texting someone, the soft taps of her fingers on the screen creating a rhythm that sounded like a final march for our marriage. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling and listening to my wife's breathing beside me. 18 years of marriage, and I was sharing a bed with a stranger. The worst part wasn't the betrayal, it was how stupid I felt for not seeing it sooner. But here's what Lila didn't know about her boring, stable, financially responsible husband. I didn't get where I was by being a pushover. I got there by being patient, methodical, and absolutely ruthless when it came to protecting my investments. And she was about to learn that I considered our marriage the biggest investment of my life. The next morning, Lila announced she had another business trip coming up. A 3-day conference in Chicago, very important for her career. "That's great, honey," I said, buttering my toast with the enthusiasm of a man planning a funeral. "I hope it's everything you're expecting." She smiled and kissed my forehead, already mentally packing her bags for another rendezvous with Conrad the gym god. As soon as she left for work, I made a phone call to Hannah Morrison, my colleague and the closest thing I had to a best friend. Hannah was a forensic accountant with a moral compass that pointed true north and a bullshit detector that made mine look like a toy. "I need your help," I told her when she answered. "And it's not work-related." "Uh-oh. This sounds serious. What's going on?" "I think Lila's having an affair." There was a pause. "I'm sorry, Miles. That sucks. What do you need?" "I need to know for sure, and then I need to figure out what to do about it." "Well, you've come to the right person. I've helped 3 friends catch cheating spouses, and let me tell you, the digital trail never lies." That afternoon, Hannah came over with her laptop and a bottle of wine. "Liquid courage," she explained. "Trust me, you're going to need it." We started with the obvious stuff: phone records, credit card statements, social media activity. It didn't take long to build a picture that would make a divorce attorney weep with joy. Hotel charges on dates when Lila claimed to be at conferences, restaurant bills for 2 when she said she was dining alone, and then Hannah found the smoking gun. Lila's tablet was synced to her iCloud account, and she'd never changed the password from our anniversary date. "Oh, honey," Hannah said, her face grim as she scrolled through Lila's messages. "Well, you need to see this." The texts between Lila and Conrad were like a masterclass in adultery. Steamy messages about hotel room encounters, complaints about having to go home to boring Miles, and detailed plans for their Chicago getaway. My personal favorite was Conrad's message: "Can't wait to show you what 18 years of marriage has been missing." Lila's response: "He has no idea what he's about to lose." She was right about that last part, just not in the way she thought. "What are you going to do?" Hannah asked, closing the laptop. I poured myself another glass of wine and considered my options. I could confront them, but that would just lead to tears, apologies, and promises that wouldn't be worth the breath they were spoken with. I could file for divorce, but that would take months and cost a fortune. Or I could do what I did best: play the long game. "I'm going to give them exactly what they deserve," I said finally. "Which is?" I smiled for the first time in weeks. "Each other." The beauty of being married to someone for 18 years is that you know all their passwords, have access to all their accounts, and understand exactly how their mind works. Lila thought she was being clever, but she'd made the classic cheater's mistake. She'd gotten comfortable. While she was at work the next day, I spent my lunch break implementing phase 1 of what I'd started calling Operation Reality Check. I began by quietly moving our joint savings into an account that only I controlled. Not theft. Everything was legitimately mine, according to our prenup, which Lila had signed without reading because she trusted me completely. Funny how trust works, isn't it? Next, I called our credit card companies and reported Lila's cards as potentially compromised. They'd be frozen within hours, just in time for her romantic Chicago getaway. I also contacted our landlord and gave notice on our apartment lease, citing a job relocation. As the primary leaseholder, I had every right to do so, but the real masterstroke was what I did with Conrad's information. Remember how I mentioned that Lila's tablet was synced to her iCloud? Well, that meant I had access to all those steamy text messages between her and her gym rat boyfriend. And Conrad had mentioned something very interesting in one of his messages. He had a live-in girlfriend named Ava. A little more digging revealed that Ava Rodriguez was not someone you wanted to mess with. She worked as a paralegal at one of the city's most aggressive law firms, had a black belt in karate, and according to her social media had very strong opinions about cheaters and liars. So I created a fake email account and sent Ava a carefully curated selection of Conrad and Lila's text messages, along with hotel receipts and photographic evidence of their various rendezvous. I included a note. "Thought you should know what your boyfriend does during his business trips. A concerned friend." Then I sat back and waited for the fireworks. They didn't take long. By Thursday afternoon, Conrad's Instagram account had gone from gym selfies to relationship apocalypse. Ava had posted a series of stories that would have made a reality TV producer weep with joy. Screenshots of Conrad's cheating texts, photos of his belongings in garbage bags on the front lawn, and a particularly creative video of her cutting up his collection of tank tops while explaining exactly what she thought of men who couldn't keep their protein powder in their own container. The best part? She tagged Conrad in every single post. I was at my desk, trying not to laugh out loud at Conrad's increasingly desperate damage control attempts, when my phone buzzed with a text from Lila. "Something's wrong with my credit card. It got declined at lunch." I texted back, "That's weird. Maybe call the company?" I tried. They said there was suspicious activity and froze the account. "Can you call them?" "Sure thing. I'll handle it when I get home." Of course, I had no intention of unfreezing anything. Lila was about to learn what it felt like to be financially powerless, and I was going to enjoy every second of it. That evening, Lila came home in full crisis mode. She'd spent the afternoon trying to sort out her credit card situation, only to discover that our joint savings account was no longer accessible to her. "Miles, we need to talk," she said, dropping her purse on the kitchen counter with the force of a woman who'd had a very bad day. "Of course. What's on your mind?" I was making dinner, playing the part of the concerned husband to perfection. "Something's wrong with our accounts. I can't access the savings, my credit cards are frozen, and when I called the bank, they said only the primary account holder could make changes." I looked up from the stir-fry I was making, my face a mask of innocent confusion. "That's strange. Let me look into it tomorrow." "Tomorrow? Miles, I'm supposed to leave for Chicago in the morning. I need access to money." "Can't the company cover your expenses? I thought this was a business trip." The look that crossed her face was priceless. Pure panic mixed with the dawning realization that her lies were catching up with her. Yes, but I like to have my own money for incidentals." "I'm sure it'll be fine. How much cash do you need?" "I can give you a couple hundred." A couple $100 for a 3-day romantic getaway with a personal trainer who probably spent that much on protein powder every week. It wasn't going to be the luxury weekend she'd planned. But Lila took the cash, kissed my cheek, and maintained the charade. "Thanks, honey. You're the best." As she packed her bags that night, I watched from the bedroom doorway. She was folding lingerie I'd never seen before, black lace and silk that definitely wasn't purchased for client meetings. "Have a great conference," I said. "Learn lots." "I will," she replied, not meeting my eyes. The next morning, I drove her to the airport, kissed her goodbye, and wished her a wonderful trip. Then I went home and settled in to watch the show. Conrad had clearly not told Lila about his relationship implosion. Her first text came around noon. "Landed safely. Miss you already." I texted back, "Miss you too. Hope the conference is everything you dreamed of." The second text came 2 hours later. "Conrad's acting weird. Something about his girlfriend finding out about us. Did you say anything to anyone?" This was rich. She was actually asking if I'd blown up her affair, while simultaneously confirming that she was with Conrad instead of at a business conference. "Say anything about what?" I replied. "I thought you were at a conference." Radio silence for 3 hours. The next message was pure panic. "There's been a misunderstanding. I can explain everything when I get home." "Explain what?" "I'm confused." "Miles, please, I'll call you tonight." But she didn't call. Instead, I got a series of increasingly frantic texts throughout the evening. Conrad had apparently spent their romantic weekend dealing with the fallout from Ava's social media rampage. His gym was getting negative reviews from people who'd seen the cheating scandal online. His business partner was asking questions about his professionalism, and several of his clients had canceled their memberships, citing moral concerns. Meanwhile, Lila was stuck in Chicago with limited funds, a boyfriend in full crisis mode, and the growing suspicion that her carefully constructed double life was crumbling around her. Sunday night, she came home early, looking like she'd aged 5 years in 3 days. "How was the conference?" I asked, not looking up from my newspaper. "It was educational?" She sat down across from me, her hands folded in her lap like a schoolchild about to confess to the principal. "Miles, we need to talk." "About what?" "About us. About things." I folded my newspaper and gave her my full attention. "I'm listening." She took a deep breath, and for a moment, I thought she might actually tell me the truth. "I think we should consider a trial separation," she said. "We've been growing apart, and maybe some time apart would help us figure out what we really want." I nodded thoughtfully, as if this was a complete surprise. "That's a big step. What brought this on?" I need some space to think. About my life, my choices, what makes me happy." "And you think Conrad Hale makes you happy?" The color drained from her face. "What?" "Conrad Hale, your high school boyfriend, the one you've been texting for months, the one you went to Chicago with instead of attending a conference." She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Miles, You what? You can explain? You're sorry? You never meant for this to happen?" I stood up, and she instinctively leaned back in her chair. "Save it, Lila. I know everything." "How long have you known?" Long enough to move our money, freeze your credit cards, and send your boyfriend's girlfriend some very interesting screenshots. Her face went white. You did what? I gave Ava Rodriguez a front row seat to your love story. Judging by Conrad's weekend, she was quite entertained. Lila stood up, her hands shaking. You had no right. I had every right. You're my wife. Or were you planning to mention the divorce before or after you cleaned out our bank account? You never what? Never planned to leave me for Conrad? Never intended to take half of everything I've worked for? Never thought about how this would destroy our marriage? She was crying now, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, no love. Just cold, calculating satisfaction. Miles, please. We can work this out. I made a mistake. No, Lila. You made a choice. A series of choices. And now you get to live with the consequences. I walked toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and you might want to start looking for a new place to live. I gave notice on the lease. You can't do this to me. Watch me. As I left our apartment, my former apartment, I could hear her sobbing behind me, but I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. Phase 2 was about to begin. Monday morning brought the kind of satisfaction that money can't buy. I woke up in a hotel room I'd booked for the week, ordered room service, and checked my phone to find 17 missed calls from Lila and a text message that simply read, "Call me now." I didn't call her. Instead, I called in sick to work and spent the morning apartment hunting. By noon, I'd put a deposit down on a one-bedroom place in the trendy part of downtown, the kind of apartment I'd always wanted but couldn't afford when I was supporting Lila's shopping habits and weekend getaways. My phone rang constantly. Lila, Vera, even my mother-in-law called to ask what was going on. I ignored them all and focused on Phase 2, professional destruction. You see, Lila worked for Premium Travel Solutions, a boutique agency that catered to high-end clients who valued discretion and professionalism. Her boss, Margaret Chen, was old school, the kind of woman who believed that personal scandals reflected poorly on business reputation. I'd met Margaret at several company functions over the years. She was polite but cold, and she'd made it clear that she expected her employees to maintain certain standards, both professionally and personally. So I scheduled a lunch meeting with Margaret under the pretense of planning a surprise anniversary trip for Lila. When we met at the upscale restaurant she'd chosen, I came prepared with documentation. "Margaret, thank you for meeting with me," I said, shaking her hand. "I have to admit, this isn't exactly about an anniversary trip." Her eyebrows rose. "Oh? I'm afraid there's been some confusion about Lila's recent business travel. According to my credit card statements, she's been charging personal expenses to the company card." I slid a folder across the table. Inside were copies of hotel bills, restaurant charges, and other expenses from Lila's trips with Conrad, all of which had been billed to her corporate account. Margaret's face grew colder with each page she turned. "These charges, they're not for client meetings." "No, they're not. I thought you should know before it becomes a bigger problem. Mr. Harwood, are you telling me that Lila has been using company funds for personal travel?" "I'm telling you that my wife has been lying to both of us. She told me she was attending business conferences. She told you she was meeting with clients. In reality, she was having an affair." Margaret closed the folder with a snap. "I see. And you have proof of this?" I handed her my phone, showing her the text messages between Lila and Conrad. Margaret read them with the expression of a woman who just discovered a snake in her garden. "This is highly inappropriate," she said finally. "I'll need to conduct a full audit of Lila's expenses." "Of course. I just thought you should know what kind of employee you're dealing with." When I got back to my hotel room, I had 23 missed calls from Lila. I finally answered on the 24th call. "Miles, what the hell did you do?" she screamed into the phone. "I had lunch with your boss. Lovely woman. Very interested in your creative expense reporting." "You snake." "Margaret called me into her office and suspended me pending investigation." "That's unfortunate. Maybe you should have thought about that before you started billing your affair to the company." You never what? Never charged romantic dinners with Conrad to your corporate card? Never booked hotel rooms for two on the company dime? Because I have receipts, Lila. Literally. The silence on the other end was deafening. "Where are you staying?" she asked finally. "That's not your concern anymore." "Miles, please. I have nowhere to go. Vera won't return my calls, my credit cards are still frozen, and now I might lose my job. Sounds like you're having a rough week. This is insane. You're destroying my entire life." "I'm not destroying anything. I'm just removing the safety net you thought you had while you destroyed our marriage." I hung up and blocked her number. That evening, I met Hannah for drinks at a bar near my new apartment. She'd been following the drama with the fascination of someone watching a particularly good soap opera. "So what's next?" she asked, raising her martini glass. You've cut off her money, exposed her affair, and gotten her suspended from work. That's pretty thorough revenge. Oh, I'm just getting started, I said. Tomorrow I'm having coffee with some old friends. What friends? Lila's friends, the ones who don't know the whole story yet. Hannah's eyes widened. Miles, you're diabolical. I prefer thorough. The next morning, I called Vera and asked if we could meet. Despite being Lila's enabler-in-chief, Vera had always been friendly to me, and she was curious enough about the situation to agree to coffee. We met at a cafe in the shopping district where Vera worked as a boutique manager. She looked nervous, fidgeting with her purse and avoiding eye contact. Miles, I want you to know that I had no idea what Lila was doing, she said before I could even order coffee. What was she doing, Vera? The thing with Conrad? Ah, so you did know? Her face crumpled. She swore me to secrecy. She said it was just a fling, that she was going through a midlife crisis, that it didn't mean anything. A 6-month affair doesn't mean anything? 6 months? She told me it had only been a few weeks. I pulled out my phone and showed her some of the text messages between Lila and Conrad dating back to October. Vera's face went pale as she read, Oh my God, she's been lying to everyone. Including you. Tell me, Vera, how many times did you cover for her? How many times did you tell me she was with you when she was actually with Conrad? Vera started crying. I'm so sorry, Miles. I thought I was being a good friend. You were, just not to the right person. I left her at the cafe, crying into her latte, and moved on to the next item on my list. Lila's book club, her yoga class, and her volunteer work at the animal shelter. By the end of the week, everyone in Lila's social circle knew exactly what kind of person she really was. The best part was that I didn't have to embellish or lie. I just told the truth and let people draw their own conclusions. Meanwhile, Conrad was dealing with his own problems. Ava's social media campaign had gone viral in their neighborhood, and his gym was hemorrhaging members. His business partner, Jared, had called an emergency meeting to discuss Conrad's impact on the brand. I knew all this because I'd started following Conrad on social media under a fake account. His posts had gone from confident gym bro motivational content to increasingly desperate damage control attempts. My personal favorite was his Instagram story from Wednesday night. Sometimes life throws you curveballs, but real champions don't quit. Fortress and never give up, stronger together, new beginnings. The comments were brutal. Is this about you cheating on Ava? Maybe try being faithful instead of just being strong. Your gym sucks, and so do you. By Friday, I was ready for Phase 3, the public confrontation. I'd heard through Vera, who was now firmly on my side, that Lila and Conrad were planning to meet at Morrison's bar on Friday night to figure out their next move. Morrison's was a popular spot in our neighborhood, always crowded on Friday nights, full of people we knew. Perfect. I arrived early and positioned myself at the bar where I had a clear view of the entrance. When Lila and Conrad walked in together, the reaction from the other patrons was immediate. Whispers, pointed stares, and at least 3 people pulling out their phones to record whatever was about to happen. Lila spotted me first. Her face went white, then red, then white again. Miles, she said, approaching the bar like she was walking to her own execution. What are you doing here? Having a drink, I said calmly. It's a free country. Conrad stepped up beside her, puffing out his chest in what I assumed was meant to be an intimidating manner. Look, man, I think you need to back off. This harassment has gone far enough. I turned to face him fully for the first time. He was exactly what I'd expected, all muscles and no brain, with the kind of artificial tan that screamed midlife crisis. Harassment? I said loudly enough for the nearby tables to hear. Is that what we're calling it when a husband finds out his wife is cheating? The bar got quieter. People were definitely listening now. Miles, please, Lila whispered. Can we talk about this privately? Why? You didn't have any problem conducting your affair publicly. Hotel lobbies, restaurants, social media. You weren't exactly discreet. Conrad stepped closer, trying to loom over me. You need to leave my girlfriend alone. Your girlfriend? I laughed. Is that what she is now? Because last I checked, she was still married to me. But hey, if you want her, you can have her, along with all her debt, her shopping addiction, and her tendency to lie about everything. You don't know what you're talking about, Conrad said, but his voice lacked conviction. Don't I? Tell me, Conrad. Has Lila mentioned that she maxed out 3 credit cards last year buying clothes she never wore? Or that she borrowed money from her mother and never paid it back? Or that she's been using her company credit card to pay for your romantic getaways? I could see the doubt creeping into Conrad's eyes. These were things Lila had never told him, secrets she'd kept even from her affair partner. That's not true, Lila said, but her voice was shaking. Isn't it? Conrad asked her about the $15,000 she spent on a girls' trip to Napa last year. Except it wasn't a girls' trip, was it, Lila? It was a solo vacation where you spent my money trying to find yourself. The crowd around us was growing. People were openly staring now, some recording with their phones. You're a liar, Lila said, but the words came out weak and unconvincing. I'm a liar? I'm not the one who's been living a double life for 6 months. I'm not the one who used company funds for personal trips. I'm not the one who destroyed an 18-year marriage for a gym membership with benefits. Conrad's face was red now. Whether from embarrassment or anger, I couldn't tell. You think you're so much better than everyone else, don't you? No, Conrad. I just think I'm better than you. And apparently so does Ava. That hit home. Conrad's hands clenched into fists, and for a moment, I thought he might actually swing at me. But he was smart enough to realize that assaulting someone in a crowded bar full of witnesses wouldn't help his already damaged reputation. Instead, he grabbed Lila's arm. Come on, we don't have to listen to this. But Lila pulled away from him. No, Conrad, I can't do this anymore. What? She turned to face the crowd that had gathered around us. He's right. About all of it. I cheated on my husband, I lied to my friends, I stole from my company. I'm a terrible person, and I'm sorry. The bar was silent. Then someone started clapping. Slowly, sarcastically, but clapping nonetheless. Others joined in, and soon the entire bar was giving Lila a mocking round of applause for her confession. She ran out, sobbing. Conrad stood there for a moment, looking lost and confused before following her. I finished my drink, left a generous tip, and walked out to find them arguing in the parking lot. This is all your fault, Conrad was yelling at Lila. You said he was boring. You said he wouldn't fight back. I didn't know he would go this far. Well, now my business is ruined, my relationship is over, and I'm stuck with you. Stuck with me? I left my husband for you. I never asked you to leave your husband. I just wanted to have some fun. I stood in the shadows, listening to them destroy each other with the efficiency of a demolition crew. It was beautiful. Finally, Conrad got in his car and drove off, leaving Lila alone in the parking lot. She saw me watching and walked over. Are you happy now? She asked, mascara running down her cheeks. Getting there, I said. I have nothing left. No job, no money, no friends, no husband, no boyfriend. You've taken everything. I haven't taken anything, Lila. I've just stopped giving you things you didn't deserve. What am I supposed to do now? I don't know. And for the first time in 18 years, that's not my problem to solve. I walked away, leaving her standing alone under the parking lot lights, finally understanding what she'd lost. But I wasn't done yet. Phase 4 was about to begin, and it was going to be the most satisfying part of all. 3 weeks later, I was settled into my new apartment and enjoying the kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. No more walking on eggshells, no more wondering where my wife really was, no more pretending that everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. Lila had been staying with her sister in the suburbs, calling me daily with increasingly desperate pleas for reconciliation. I'd stopped answering after the first week. Conrad had lost his gym. The combination of a negative publicity, canceled memberships, and his business partner's decision to buy him out had left him with nothing but a pile of protein powder and a lot of regrets. According to social media, he'd moved back in with his parents and was working at a big box gym for hourly wages. But I wasn't satisfied yet. They'd both gotten consequences for their actions, but they hadn't truly paid for what they'd done to me. That required something more personal, more devastating, more final. So I planned a party. Not just any party, a new beginning celebration at my new apartment. I invited everyone. Hannah and my work colleagues, Vera and the rest of Lila's former friends, neighbors from our old building, even Margaret Chen from Lila's former job. The theme was honesty and fresh starts, and I made sure everyone knew exactly what we were celebrating, my freedom from a lying, cheating wife and her pathetic boyfriend. I hired caterers, bought top-shelf liquor, and sent out invitations that read, "Join Miles Harwood in celebrating the end of his marriage and the beginning of his real life. Come toast the truth, no matter how ugly it might be." The RSVPs poured in. People love drama, especially when it doesn't involve them directly. The night of the party, my apartment was packed. Everyone was there except the 2 people who'd made it all possible. But that was about to change. At exactly 9 o'clock, right when the party was in full swing, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Lila and Conrad standing in the hallway, looking like refugees from their own lives. "We need to talk," Lila said. "Perfect timing," I replied, stepping aside to let them in. "Everyone's here." They walked into my apartment and immediately realized they'd made a mistake. Every conversation stopped. Every eye turned to them. The silence was so complete you could have heard a pin drop. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced, raising my glass, our guests of honor have arrived. The woman who threw away 18 years of marriage for a gym membership, and the man who destroyed his own life for someone else's wife. The crowd began to murmur. Some people were pulling out their phones again. Miles, stop, Lila whispered. Please? Stop what? Telling the truth? I thought we were past that. Remember your confession at Morrison's bar? I cheated on my husband. I lied to my friends. I stole from my company. Ring any bells? Conrad stepped forward, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. You can't humiliate us like this. I'm not humiliating you. You humiliated yourselves. I'm just providing the venue. You're a sick bastard, Conrad said, his voice rising. What kind of man does this to people? The kind of man whose wife decided to upgrade to a younger model without mentioning it first. The kind of man who discovered his entire marriage was a lie. The kind of man who got tired of being everyone's doormat. I turned to address the crowd. You know what the funny thing is? They thought I'd never find out. They thought I was too boring, too trusting, too weak to fight back. They underestimated the power of a man with nothing left to lose. Vera stepped forward from the crowd. Lila, you need to leave. This isn't helping anyone. No, I said firmly. She needs to hear this. They both do. I pulled out my phone and connected it to my speaker system. I've been saving something special for tonight. A little audio recording from Lila's phone. Lila's face went white. Miles, don't. But I was already playing the recording, a voicemail Lila had left for Conrad during one of their early encounters, detailing exactly what she thought of me and our marriage. Her voice filled the apartment, describing me as pathetic, boring, and completely clueless. The crowd listened in stunned silence as my wife's voice explained how easy it was to lie to me, how she'd been planning to leave me as soon as she figured out how to take half of everything I owned. When the recording ended, the silence was deafening. Anything to add? I asked Lila. She was crying now, but I felt no sympathy. I was angry when I said those things. I didn't mean them. Which part didn't you mean? The part where you called me pathetic, or the part where you planned to take half my money? All of it. I was confused. I was having a midlife crisis. You were having an affair. Let's call it what it was. Conrad grabbed Lila's arm. Come on, we don't have to listen to this. But as they turned to leave, I played my trump card. Oh, Conrad, before you go, you might want to check your social media. Ava posted something interesting about you today. He froze. What? I pulled up Ava's Instagram on my phone and read aloud. For anyone wondering what happened to Conrad Hale, the cheating personal trainer, he's currently living in his parents' basement and working at Planet Fitness for $12 an hour. His business partner bought out his share of the gym for pennies on the dollar, and he's been asking all his former clients if they need yard work done. Karma is beautiful. The crowd began to laugh. Not kind laughter, but the harsh, mocking laughter of people witnessing someone's complete downfall. Conrad's face turned purple with rage. You did this. You ruined everything. I didn't do anything except tell the truth. You ruined your own life when you decided to sleep with a married woman. He lunged at me then, but Hannah and two of my colleagues stepped between us. Conrad was strong, but he was also outnumbered and smart enough to realize that starting a fight wouldn't improve his situation. You're going to pay for this, he said, breathing heavily. With what? My successful career? My new apartment? My intact reputation? Face it, Conrad, you lost. You both lost. Lila was sobbing now, her carefully applied makeup running down her face in black streams. Miles, please, I know I hurt you, but this has gone too far. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix 18 years of lies, Lila. Sorry doesn't give me back the trust you destroyed. Sorry doesn't erase the fact that you were planning to take everything I worked for and give it to your boyfriend. I never would have gone through with it. Bullshit. You already started. You just got caught before you could finish. I turned to address the crowd one final time. Ladies and gentlemen, let this be a lesson to all of us. Marriage is a partnership built on trust, respect, and honesty. When someone violates that trust, they don't deserve forgiveness. They deserve consequences. The crowd began to applaud, slowly at first, then with increasing enthusiasm. Someone whistled. Someone else shouted, Amen! Lila and Conrad stood there, humiliated and defeated, as an entire room of people celebrated their downfall. Finally, they left, pushing through the crowd and out the door like criminals fleeing a crime scene. The party continued for another 2 hours, but the real entertainment was over. People began to leave, congratulating me on my strength and dignity in handling such a difficult situation. Hannah was the last to go. You know, she said as she put on her coat, I've never seen anyone execute revenge so thoroughly. It was like watching a masterclass in strategic destruction. I prefer to think of it as justice, I replied. Whatever you call it, it was impressive. What's next for you? I looked around my new apartment, at the life I'd built for myself in just a few weeks. Next, I live. Really live, for the first time in years. After Hannah left, I poured myself a glass of wine and stood on my balcony, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Lila was probably crying into her pillow, wondering how her perfect plan had gone so wrong. Somewhere else, Conrad was staring at the ceiling of his childhood bedroom, trying to figure out how he'd gone from successful businessman to cautionary tale in less than a month. I felt no guilt, no regret, no sadness. They'd made their choices, and I'd simply made sure they lived with the consequences. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This isn't over. I deleted the message without responding. It was over. They just didn't know it yet. The next morning, I woke up in my own bed, in my own apartment, with no one to answer to but myself. I made coffee, read the newspaper, and planned my day without having to consider anyone else's needs or wants. For the first time in 18 years, I was truly free. At work, I threw myself into my projects with renewed energy. My colleagues noticed the change immediately. I was sharper, more confident, more decisive. Success, it turned out, was the best revenge of all. Over the following weeks, I heard updates about Lila and Conrad through the social media grapevine. Lila had found a job at a small travel agency for half her previous salary. Conrad was indeed working at a chain gym and living with his parents. They'd tried to make their relationship work, but the stress and mutual blame had torn them apart within a month. Neither of them tried to contact me again. 6 months after the party, I was promoted to senior analyst with a significant salary increase. I used the bonus to take a solo trip to Europe, something I'd always wanted to do, but never could because Lila hated traveling without luxury accommodations I couldn't afford. As I sat in a cafe in Paris, watching the world go by and enjoying the kind of peace that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be, I reflected on everything that had happened. Lila had been right about one thing. She had no idea what she was about to lose. She'd thought she was trading up, leaving boring, stable Miles for exciting, dangerous Conrad. Instead, she'd traded a comfortable life with a man who loved her for uncertainty with a man who'd abandoned her the moment things got difficult. Conrad had thought he was getting a sophisticated older woman who would worship his muscles and boost his ego. Instead, he'd gotten a needy, high-maintenance partner who'd cost him his business, his reputation, and his future. They'd both gotten exactly what they deserved, each other and all the misery that came with it. As for me, I'd gotten something better than revenge. I'd gotten my life back. I raised my coffee cup in a silent toast to the city of light, to new beginnings, and to the beautiful truth that sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is losing something you thought you couldn't live without. The waiter brought my check, and I paid it with cash from my own account. Money I'd earned and saved and could spend however I wanted. No joint decisions, no arguments about budgets, no lies about where the money was going. Just freedom, pure and simple. I walked back to my hotel through the narrow streets of Montmartre, past couples holding hands and families laughing together, and I felt nothing but gratitude. Not for what I'd lost, but for what I'd found, myself. That night, I called Hannah from my hotel room. "How's Paris?" she asked. "Perfect. Absolutely perfect." "Any regrets about how things ended?" I looked out my window at the Eiffel Tower, lit up against the night sky like a beacon of possibility. "None whatsoever." "Good. You deserve this happiness, Miles. You really do." After I hung up, I opened my laptop and began writing. Not a journal, not a memoir, but a new chapter. A story about a man who thought his life was over when his marriage ended, only to discover it was just beginning. I wrote until dawn, the words flowing like water, like truth, like freedom itself. When the sun rose over Paris, I was still writing, still planning, still dreaming about all the possibilities that lay ahead. Lila had been wrong about a lot of things, but she'd been absolutely right about one. I had no idea what I was about to lose. I'd lost my illusions, my naivety, my willingness to be taken advantage of. And in return, I'd gained everything that mattered, my self-respect, my independence, and my future. It was the best trade I'd ever made.